What's going on, Auburn fans? This is Patrick Greenfield with AL.com. I am here with our AL.com recruiting writer, Nick Alvarez, and we're going to break down Auburn's 2022 recruiting class. Nick, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, yeah.
All right, throw your name up right there so people can see it. Go to AL.com, go to Twitter, follow him. He's got a lot of great stuff. This is Bryan Harsin's first full recruiting class. Not a lot of noise on the day or really since December. What can you tell us about what happened today for the Tigers?
Yeah, well, today and yesterday, Auburn really made pushes for two players, three-star edge Jack Pyburn and four-star running back Tremonti Citizen. Pyburn went to Florida, Citizen to Miami. Auburn had visited him both recently, really kind of dedicated some time there. But instead, I think Auburn fans would kind of take solace in the fact that December kind of was a really strong period, and that's kind of where the bulk of this class came together, and then obviously some of the transfers. So maybe a little bit of a sour note, but I think overall, the work that needed to get done, I think did for the most part.
Yeah, not to add a little salt to the wound, but obviously longtime Auburn commit Caden Story. He went to Clemson today, so that's the bad. But let's get back into the good for Auburn and for Bryan Harsin. I'm going to throw up the graphics that we got the offense that we're going to kind of go with first. Which of these guys are you really liking? I saw Holden Gariner out in Hoover earlier this year in the summertime. I've seen Amari Kelly at Hewitt Trustville. Who you got on your radar?
Yeah, so I think there are just two people that I just love seeing their highlights on Twitter, and one's going to be a little confusing. I'm going to start with him. Alex McPherson for a kicker has pretty awesome highlights. His brother, Evan McPherson, has gotten pretty famous the past few weeks.
Yeah, he's well known, isn't he?
Yeah, he's helping the Bengals get to the Super Bowl and calling his shot as he does it. Alex, fairly close to his brother, and I think that's going to be an awesome thing for Auburn fans to see next year as the Carlson dynasty ends. Also, the tight end, Micah Riley Tucker. This dude is just so dynamic in the open field as a pass catcher, just kind of being a target and being kind of a reliable option for quarterback. That whoever plays quarterback next year for Auburn, they're going to need him and some of these other guys to step up too. I'm looking at, Amari Kelly, like you mentioned, also Damari Alston, who has also kind of adopted a pretty fun recruiting kind of background on Twitter a bit and kind of engaging with some of the staffers in the Auburn recruiting office and some of the other recruits that they've been pursuing.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. Another guy I'd like to point out is Jay Fair, speedy wide receiver out of Texas. I was watching his stuff in December. He'll be pretty interesting. And then Eston Harris Jr., huge offensive tackle. I should have put OT from Auburn High School. I like this offensive class, and it'll be interesting to see what Bryan Harsin's kind of cooking up there. However, the quarterback situation, we'll get to with the transfers. Let's switch over to defense real fast. Obviously, a little bit thicker for Auburn. If you want to, kind of go into who you like right here.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest pieces of the class was Robert Woodyard, who was Auburn's first flip from Alabama for a few years. It was a long time coming. A lot of people expected, and Robert Woodyard really sees the vision, I think, that Harsin's putting together on the defensive side of the ball with the kind of coordinators being in question. He might have the opportunity to kind of really come in and play from day one. A few other players who I also think will have the opportunity is Jeffrey Mba from the JUCO circuit, the number one JUCO prospect coming out from France. He is when you put him on the defensive line, he's not going to get moved in the run game. And then you look in the secondary, a lot of time and effort dedicated there with some JUCO transfers and acquisitions as well. I think my personal favorite of the bunch is Jadarian Rim and kind of how kind of versatile he can be and kind of filling around the secondary.
And, Auburn, that's one thing Auburn is always pretty great is having defense. But, yeah, Jeffrey Mba, I want to say he was the number one JUCO prospect in the nation. Also, Keontae Scott, as you see, a cornerback, one of the top JUCO cornerbacks in the nation. Add them with Austin Osbury, Jadarian Rhyme, and I love this on the outside for Auburn. Now, another part we're going to go into, I made a separate graphic for the transfers. Everybody's want to know about these quarterbacks. You have Holden, you have Demarius Davis, you obviously have TJ Finley, but now you have Robbie Ashford, former Hoover star, coming back from Oregon, and obviously the guy who beat Alabama, Zach Calzada. What is Auburn's quarterback situation looking like with all these guys?
I think it's gonna be pretty exciting to watch how it shakes out. I think there's opportunity for kind of each of the guys involved. You know, obviously there might be a little bit more of a jump for Holden coming in as a freshman, but that also probably wouldn't be completely unexpected. Robbie Ashford has a lot of people locally really excited for him coming back. He was just known as a dynamic athlete and baseball player at Hoover. He'll probably be only playing football this season, but he may look at playing baseball also at Auburn in the future. He's fast, he's dynamic, he has a really, really big arm. And you look at Zach and then TJ Finley too, you see kind of proven college football quarterbacks at the SEC level. So there are options, which I guess isn't a bad thing, but there's also the adage that, you know, if you have 4 quarterbacks, or if you have 2 quarterbacks, let alone 4, you really have 1. So it's definitely something that has to play out.
And I think, you know, here we can kind of go into, you know, our thoughts to kind of finish this off. But Bryan Harsin, when Bo Nix was benched the first time, Bryan Harsin made it very clear that everybody in the quarterback room should be ready to basically play the next snap. And now you're talking about TJ, Demetrius, Holden, Zach, and Rob. That's 5 guys. That's a lot of people in the quarterback room. Obviously, Bryan Harsin, former Boise State quarterback, former OC. He must have something cooking, but is this a situation where you see, I mean, somebody has to transfer out, right, to get any playing time?
I think there's going to be something has to happen or something has to break. And I think you might see that when Auburn gets another offensive coordinator at second of the offseason, like that might kind of help shape what it looks like. You know, be hard pressed to believe Zach or Robbie didn't maybe look at Auburn at potentially Austin Davis's offense and now maybe have to reevaluate kind of what they're going to be looking like. But overall, I think on Harsin's class, I think they addressed areas of need. The question is going to be, was it enough? Something that's kind of been stuck in my head. Yesterday, Jack Pyburn, when he committed to Florida, in talking about the options he had, he mentioned that Auburn had an extremely favorable, and that's a quote, defensive line depth chart and how he could kind of contribute to that. And I get the same could be said. And Jeffrey Mbach could say the same thing. You know, NC Sledge, all these guys, Jason Jones from Oregon transfer, like all these guys are gonna have a chance.
I'll devil's advocate you right there for Auburn, and unfortunately for Auburn fans, the Tigers have had a lot of defensive linemen transfer out or graduate, so the depth has just been kind of you know, washed away. So a lot of these guys could come in. It's kind of interesting that a Caden Story wasn't able to kind of, you know, they weren't able to sew him back into the situation. Although I do know the defensive line coach had gone to Clemson. That was probably a big reason relationship wise for him. So
I think that was something that I think was clear in the last day, that it was difficult for Auburn to kind of keep a lot of these plates spinning when so many of these kids primary recruiters were leaving. And that happened a little bit in December, and they were able to, you know, have some creative ways to really kind of just manage that deficit or that loss and pull together a strong class. And that helped then, you know, when it happened again now though in the January February period, they weren't really able to overcome it.
Yeah, and you know what, you can't really judge obviously Bryan Harsin by these first, I would say the first 2 years almost. You really need to kind of get your system going. I think it kind of is a little messy personally, you know, losing your DC and your OC and then your new OC. But hopefully, you know, he's able to kind of get his pieces in place, and this is a big day for him. So good on that. Well, thank you, Nick. We appreciate it. Again, go to Twitter, follow Nick Alvarez. He's our recruiting writer for AL.com. We'll have a lot of good stuff coming out as football season and then spring football kind of gets up, and A-Day we'll have the highlights. But if you have any comments, be sure to leave them below, and we appreciate it. Happy signing day, Nick.
Yeah, you too, Patrick.